Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Everyone a Reader. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for viewing these episodes. They're really fun for me to do, so I'm glad if just at least one person watches them. Personally, I'm super excited to be doing this today. One, I've been listening to Taylor Swift all day, so I am pumped. Two, I have a new t-shirt with Ruth Bader Ginsburg on it. How amazing is that? And three, we have our first doctor on the show. That is right, Dr. Andrew Crouse, who is also my boss. So I was a little bit nervous when, doing this interview. But Andrew is like one of the coolest people in the world. He's been working here in Saudi for the last 6 years. But before that, he has taught and worked in China, India, Fiji, the United States of America. This guy's been around the globe. It's pretty cool. And something that just really stands out about Andrew in my mind is the fact that he leads with kindness. He is one of the nicest and most genuine people that I've ever known or worked for. And our mission at the school is we inspire innovation and compassionate action. And I just feel like he models that so well, right? He is really compassionate, really kind. He cares when he's talking to you and asking you questions, and it just comes through constantly. So it's just a really cool thing about working for him. And I think my personal favorite thing about Andrew is because his background is, he's taught at the college level and high school. Every time he comes and sees stuff in the elementary school, his mind is blown. And maybe he's just being really nice. It works. It's working if that's what he's doing. Because I always feel really proud of what I'm doing. But he'll come into the classrooms and he'll just be like, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe what you're doing. Look at this. Look at that parent involvement. Oh, look at the engagement. And it's just like, yeah, Andrew, that's just what we do down here in the elementary. So it's always a exciting and fun day when he stops by. But I think that's all I'm going to say for the introduction. I'll let the interview speak for itself with this incredibly intelligent, kind, and just cool guy, Dr. Andrew Crouse. Well, Dr. Crouse, welcome to Everyone a Reader.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
I am so excited to have you on the show. You're like the top level in the hierarchy of our school that has been on the show. So I'm pretty nervous for how this will go. You could fire me, I guess, right?
I don't think it'll go that bad today, will it?
Keep our fingers crossed. Okay, well, are you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started.
Great. Okay, so I have 6 questions for you. And the first one is, what is your favorite children's book? Now, this could be something that you remember from your own childhood, or maybe something that's been published more recently. What do you think?
So I'll tell you, I gave this some thought, because you gave me this question ahead of time, so I could think about it a little bit, and I did, and I was thinking of some books from my childhood and so on. But then what I did, we're getting ready to move fairly soon, so we've got lots of books and things out that have been around the house for a long time. And I took a look at the books that I used to read to my daughters, and I really remember this one, Owl Babies, and it's not so much the story that I remember, but what I remember about is the emotion that's in the book. That the mother owl flies away, and the 3 babies are sitting on the branch, and they're huddled together, and they're worried about their mother's gone and what's going to happen, and they support one another in the end, and feel comfortable being there. And then at the very end, the mother swoops back in, and everybody's happy again. But it's filled with these emotions and a bit of anxiety and a bit of comfort, and I remember that, and I remember enjoying reading it to my girls.
Yeah, I read that to my kids too. And it's the same. Oh, it's such a classic, like, story of just, it says so much with so little, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
really
does. There's
short
not that many
dialogue.
words in the book. It's not a long book.
Yeah, and it's basically all dialogue of the owls, like, anyway, yes, love, good.
No, no, I enjoy it.
Hey, great start. You are passing so far. This is
Okay, okay. One down.
okay. Question number 2 is a little bit more challenging. What is your favorite genre to read, and why do you like that genre?
Well, this one I thought a bit about as well, because I originally thought, and I thought, oh, well, I like historical fiction, and I really do like historical fiction. But then I'm kind of a data person, so I went and I looked at my Kindle and looked at the account, and over the past 2 months I started reading down through, and the whole lot of them are nonfiction, and so I think, but judging by what I actually read, I've got to say that nonfiction is my favorite favorite genre, and it is. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I enjoy reading nonfiction. But once in a while, I enjoy that guilty pleasure of sitting with an actual physical book and reading something that's not just information, that's just for fun. And so,
you should do that more often. It should not be a guilty pleasure. Yes, like getting lost in a book. I have that feeling too sometimes of like, I'm not really getting anything out of this. I'm not even really challenging myself, but so much fun. So thinking about nonfiction, that's like a huge category. Is there a specific type of nonfiction that you've been reading lately? Or is it just kind of general topics?
So lately I've got 2 things. So I think I told you I'm making a move relatively soon to another part of the world, and it's kind of motivated me. Well, it's motivated me to read. There's sort of 3 themes. Looking down through the list I've got, there's at least 3 themes that I've been reading books on, and there's quite a few of them. But I've got 3 real themes, and they're all kind of motivated by an impending move. Some of them are about, for instance, first 90 days and managing transitions, and the speed of trust are all about making those kind of transitions, and how you support a new team of people, and how you build those relationships in ways that are positive and productive. And so that's one theme. Another theme is, I read quite a long time ago. I read a book by Tjeerd Hofstede that on cultures, and he had this wonderful, very large study on cultures that has been replicated and extended over the years. And I picked that up after not having looked at it for quite some time. I picked it up again and reread his book on culture, and then it prompted me to read another book on culture. And next week, I've signed up for a webinar with that organization. The original author is dead now, but his son is still, and colleagues are still running the organization. So that theme has led to other things that I'm doing as well. And then probably the third theme is looking at deeper learning in schools and how we promote deeper learning. And probably my favorite book that I've read in the last couple of months on that is a book by Jal Mehta on it has that in the title. It's In Search of Deeper Learning. That was quite nice, and that kind of allowed me to branch off to a lot of other things as well. There's a couple other books on my list that came from that one.
Interesting. So it seems like
one more, one about the pandemic as well. I had there's a great book on the pandemic called The Great Influenza. It's about the pandemic of 1918, and has a lot of implications for us today.
Oh, was that published like recently to kind of drawing connections, or is it published before?
It was published just before the current pandemic started. So so it's very, very interesting because some of in the preface it talks some about well, we could face something similar, and what they describe what we could face is very, very much like what we are facing.
Yeah. Wow. It's there were people talking about it for years.
And that one kind of scratches the itch that I have about historical fiction as well, because it had a lot of firsthand accounts that it is true, but it sort of fits that same feeling for me as historical fiction might.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So it seems like, you've noticed a theme in your reading, and it just kind of made me think of this other question, which is, when you really want to learn about something, do you stick only with reading nonfiction books, or do you find information from other sources? Like you mentioned, you're taking a course now, kind of in that same vein. Are there other places or other platforms where you get information, or is it mostly conferences and books?
Certainly my reading also prompts me, it prompts me to have discussions with lots of people around the world. In these same books, actually, I should say those 3 books that I mentioned, the Speed of Trust, the First 90 Days, and the book on transitions, all of those came out of 3 weeks ago. I have regular conversation with other international heads of schools around the world, and in a group that I'm involved in, they all mentioned those books as great things that helped them in similar transitions, and so I jumped in and read those, and then have had subsequent conversations with other people about them in other networks that I'm connected with, and so yeah, my reading both inspires what I do, but it also is inspired by what I do and who I'm connected with in other parts of my life.
Yeah, it's like a big stew of learning, right? You throw in some friends, throw in some conversations, some books, and it just, yeah, cool, thanks.
Exactly.
Okay, that was a long one. We got to get going here.
Sorry, I tend to do that. Keep me on track.
No, I love it. It's great. Question number 3. Okay, in your opinion, what makes a good reader? A good reader?
Well, it's a tricky one, because I think if I have to define a good reader, I almost have to say the other ones are bad readers, and I'm not sure what makes a bad reader, except for maybe somebody that doesn't read at all. So, I'll say as long as you're reading, it's good.
Yeah, I totally see. It's an interesting way to think about that question. That, like, in order to define one thing, you have to define the opposite. Yeah, cool. I don't think anyone's answered like that before.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good. So just anyone.
I enjoy being the oddball, so that I'm happy with that.
Yes. Okay, cool. Question number 4. What is a strong reading habit that you have, or something that maybe you want to work towards?
That's interesting. Whether it's a strength or a weakness might depend on your perspective. So I find it very, very difficult not to be a thorough reader. For instance, when I open up the book, if I don't read the preface and the dedication, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. I have to read that. And at the very end, I've even got to flip through the footnotes. I don't have to read every footnote. I'm not quite that bad, but I get a sense for them. And I read relatively slowly, relative to my wife, at least. I read relatively slowly, but it often, and I often am taking notes and am prompted to, one book leads to another, and so I read very deliberately and relatively slowly. If you have to get down to the end of the instruction booklet on the plane that tells you how to exit in an emergency, that wouldn't be a very good habit to have. But I can tell you where all the exits are.
Well, yeah, look at that. So then, thinking about that habit, you said it depends on how you look at it. Looking back on your reading life, do you feel like that's been a positive habit, or do you think that it's impacted you in a negative way?
I'd say for me, I find that as being very positive, and I wouldn't change it, and I don't intend to change it. But but I can see where some people might say, they're able to read a stack of books and maybe come with a somewhat of an understanding of lots of things, as opposed to a deep understanding of a fewer things, and I can see there's value there too, where each I've got room for both ways being right in my world, but I'm happy with my habit too.
Yeah, that's I recently heard that Reese Witherspoon, the actress and producer,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of slashes in her titles. She reads one book a day, like every day.
Wow.
She reads a book. And when I heard that, I was thinking, like, I don't know if I would like that. I feel, there's so many books that are so good that I love to spend time on and really dive deep into, like, just to rush through. And she does a lot of reading for, like, turning books into movies and TV shows and all that. So she runs book clubs and all these different things. So it's for her job. But I don't know. I'm a really slow reader too, and I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see that. I've heard other people say that, that they read a book a day, and I couldn't come close to doing that. And I already spend quite a bit of time reading each day. And so if I were, my family would never see me if I read a book a day, because my the way in which I read, I'd read it very carefully. One thing I should say, there is another habit of mine. It's not reading, but it's very closely related, and it does inspire my reading. That kind of solves that problem for me, and that is that I subscribe to a service that summarizes books and makes audio and textual summaries of books, and I often listen to them on the way to work. And lots of times it affects me in one of two ways. I either think, oh, this is a book that they really said everything they need to in that summary, and I don't need to spend time reading it, or it gets me really excited and I go out and buy the book and read it. And so that, I think, kind of helps me with the efficiency bit, that matches up with my slow, deliberate pace of reading.
Yeah, so you're able to, like, weed out, like, nope, that's a no-go, don't want that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that Blink? Is it Blinkist? Is that what it's called? Blink? The service?
Sorry, I lost you just for a second.
Is it the Blink or the Blinkist?
I've looked at Blink as well, and Blink is very similar, but the one I actually use is called SoundView.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know there was more than one. I've used Blink for a while, but I don't know.
Yeah, I started with the SoundView one, and I looked at Blink and thought about switching at one point, but then I just stuck with the one I had.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a really cool idea. Okay, let's move to question 5 here. This is going to take some envisioning work. Okay, so get ready to sink into a world not here. Imagine you've just finished, like, the most amazing book you've ever read in your whole life. Okay, so you just page through the footnotes and you're finishing, and you close the book. What do you do next?
That might depend a little bit on the genre, because if it is one of those rare times that I'm enjoying the historical fiction book that puts me in the setting of wherever it is, I think it transport, or some of those books transport you so much to that time and place that I almost need time to just sit there and kind of absorb the ambiance of where I am or where I am in the book, in my imagination, mm-hmm. and just kind of enjoy that that state of being with that the book has provided me with. On the other hand, if some of these books that I've been reading more recently, I get excited about what they've led me to. For instance, with the Bolivia one, where I'm headed, I read a book on that was on the history of Bolivia, but simultaneously I read a book that was stories that were individual people's accounts of some of these historical events. And so reading them side by side was a really interesting experience. But even as I was going along, and certainly by the end, I was grabbing some of the original sources, looking them up on the internet, finding more information about what surrounded these events or these people or these stories, and so with nonfiction, I'm often it's often sending me off in some other direction, a related direction usually, but looking up some more research, looking up another book, and buying the next one online, that kind of thing.
I love it. It's it really depends on the kind of book, right? You can't just have a blanket statement for what do you do next, because it's always what you just did. Cool, thanks. Okay, we're at the last question now, and this is a toughie, so you can take a minute to think if you want, no rush. Number 6. why do you read?
So I'll divide it into those two categories again, because the the information one is almost or the nonfiction one is very easy to answer. I mean, it's for information and ideas and new ideas and well, not necessarily new ideas. I mean, sometimes they're old ideas. And looking at this historical one was fascinating because I was able to put myself into people's role, into people's situation, and understand from the historical context, from the historical book, what things were going on at that time, but understand from the personal narratives what it might have felt like to be in that context. And so that's information, and enabling me to almost close as I could get to experiencing what might be like to be in a different place or at a different time. And I feel like the historical fiction definitely does that for me. And that's what I enjoy about that, is it allows me to, put myself in a different place in a different time. And fiction especially, transports you into that time, whereas history doesn't necessarily do that. But the fiction really effectively does that and helps you to feel what it might be like to have lived through this period of time. And it gives it color and dimension, and it's so easy when you read a historical account to say, oh, those people should have done it this way. But if you are able to put yourself in that position and appreciate what they might have known and what they might have not known, at the time, it gives you a whole different view into things.
It's empathy building, right? Like getting into someone else's brain as they're, even if it's a fictional character, as they're living through this experience, it builds so much empathy and compassion for. Exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're at the end here. Do I get to keep?
It's already over. Whoa.
I get to keep teaching at this school? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
We'll double your salary.
Well, Dr. Crouse, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're so busy, especially in this crazy year, this crazy time. So I really appreciate you taking some time out to be on my silly little show here. I really enjoyed it.
It doesn't seem silly, and I hear it's not little either. You've got a lot of subscribers. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to be here, and thank you to all your listeners as well.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see you soon. All right.
See you later. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.